In a moment, I'll tell you why I see a man taking a picture in this image. But first, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about something called pareidolia. You may have heard of it. It's when people see bunnies in clouds or faces in architectural designs. In fact, let's go take a look at what Google's new AI-enhanced search says about it. Pareidolia is the tendency to perceive meaningful images in random or ambiguous visual patterns. For example, seeing faces in the flames of a fire or on the moon. Pareidolia is a common experience, and it is. You've all had it where you've looked at wood grain on a wall or something and said, look, there's eyes, that looks like a cartoon character that I know, or something of that nature. But it also says that it's perceiving meaningful images. While that can be in the eye of the beholder, it's meaningful to you, or it could be you're actually seeing something there that nobody else is noticing. For example, if you're looking through a window made of patterned glass, and you see an odd image that looks like a man taking a picture. Let's go back to that. Is it a man taking a picture that's all warped out by the glass and he's actually there in the background? Or is it a pattern in the glass itself? And that's the rub, trying to figure out what's meaningful and what isn't, or better spoken, they're all meaningful, but what is true or accurate or real and what is just perceptive. All right, so let me show you about this man taking a picture, and I'll tell you why that's important to me, because it's the same ability that I have oodles of compared to most people, I guess, that led me to see patterns in the Dramatica theory development, back in narrative psychology, in the shadows and in the small details that are all covered up with other stuff. And in order to be able to see them, you need to have a good sense of pattern recognition, which is what this is really all about. Then, once you've seen it, you can show it to others. Once they see it, they can confirm whether they think, from their perspective, it's something real or not. And that's a large part of how Dramatica was built. So let's outline this guy's face right here. Here's his forehead, and then we're going to go around his entire face up here to this side, cuts off the top of his head. You can see that there's one eye here and another eye there, with his nose coming around this way. There's a mustache. Guy has a white beard. Mustache here, where his mouth is down there, and there's his chin. And if you keep looking at it, you can see that his arm is coming up this way with his finger extended and his other fingers wrapped around. Goes back down here. And he's holding a camera. There's the outline of the camera, which includes this little bit that bumps up on top. And down here you can see the lens right in the middle, and maybe even a few of his fingers on this side holding up the other side of the camera. So this guy, he's taken this picture of what? I don't know. This is all I can see. Now, can you see that? Maybe, probably. I hope I've described it well enough to see those eyes, the nose, the mouth, the mustache, the beard, the hand with the fingers, the camera outline, and this. This is just a pattern on my shower stall wall, which is made of plastic and created to look like marble with gilded colors swirling in it. In fact, there are so many of these things in my shower stall wall, I've ended up taking well over 100 pictures of different images that I can see in them. It's just really conducive, like a Rorschach test, ink blots. All right. So in this image, there's a lot more to see. For example, if you look down here, you can see that this face, here's the head around here, also has a beard. Okay, this is the beard down there. There's his nose, curls up with the nostril and under the cheek. There's his eyes. Or you might look at this face over on the side that has a big brow ridge and his eye and a nose and a mouth and a protruding chin. That's kind of interesting. Or you might see here a ghost. This is his head with two eyes on this side, kind of like Casper, and a big peak in back, big fluffy cloud peak. His arm is extended over here and comes down this way where he tails off to the bottom. As kind of an ethereal figure. In a sense, if you look at all of this as the size of this guy's head, he looks a little like a stormtrooper, doesn't he? If you look at just a head that big, rather than just this little portion of it over here. Now, strangely enough, there are many other images in here. For example, on his shoulder is this little fox climbing up over his shoulder. You can see the head outline with the two eyes there and the pointy snout, and even a little darker area on the snout if you look carefully, which really sells it. And after his head, there's an ear up here, an ear up there, fur along his back, and one foot is coming up over the edge of his shoulder to help him climb up there. But that's not all. Over down here is a lady who is laughing. There's her forehead. There's her eye. She's got a pointy nose and a long upper lip, but it comes down here to her open mouth where you can see it's wide open, and her expression is that she's laughing at something off to this side, and then her neck slopes back down here. And speaking of down here, that appears to be a cat climbing down this side or walking down that side with his tail extended and his legs. You see 3 of them here, and then going up to his head, which has actually gone a little off the bottom of the frame. Up here, there's another face. This is like a cartoon character. It's got a balding guy with a little hair on the back, 2 eyes, a bulbous nose if you look at that little line carefully there, and his nostril and his mouth. And so there's something like a Kilroy was here kind of cartoon. And then down here, here's an African man staring up at the stars. There's his tall hat that has a section that is dark and a section that's lighter. Here's his head right there. You can see it comes out for his nose a little bit and his lip over there, if you look really carefully. And then it comes down to his shoulder. There's his arm, which is exposed in whatever kind of a clothing is wearing, and down here there's a different color of the clothing, but he's clearly looking up at something over there. I mean, you can all see that, right? Well, how about this guy here, kind of almost a demonic figure, like an animal or a skinwalker or something, with the edge of the face, the brow, and the eye. There's another eye. Comes down here to this kind of snouty nose, and there's the top of the nose, maybe a frowning mouth in there, and an ear over on this side. Or you could even look bigger and say, here's a face of somebody who's got an ear over there, his eye, his other eye, and his head, and his nose around there, and don't know how that fits in with all the rest of this. But as you see, maybe it was hard at first to see this man, there's his head, taking a picture with his eyes and his nose and his mustache and his mouth and his beard and his hand with the extended fingers and his camera with the top, like a lot of cameras have, raised up, and the lens and his other fingers supporting the other side. But if you look deep enough, and if you open your mind enough, you can see these images. And the reason why this is important is that closed-mindedness is not seeing every way of looking at it. Simple as that. Anything you look at can have an endless number of multiple meanings. If you just keep looking for other meanings, you get lost because you never actually come to any kind of a conclusion where this is what it is, where you think, I have it nailed. But the fact is, the more different ways you have of looking at something, the more you can create parallax, the more you can get perspective. Chris often said that the reason we have 4 signposts is that each is a different way of looking at the same thing, through a different filter. So that if you're looking at an aquarium, he would say, and you have a stick in it, and the stick hits the water and appears to be bent, you can't tell if the stick is bent or if it's refracting in the water from just one point of view. You actually have to walk around the aquarium and see it from all sides before you know if the stick is bent, or if it's just refracting, or if the stick is both refracting and bent. Okay? You don't know until you've seen it from all sides. So I strongly advise you to start opening up and looking for these patterns, because the more you train yourself in it, the more you'll see faces and creatures and ideas and notions and other people's points of view that don't seem ridiculous anymore, so that you can at least entertain the fact that from their perspective, what they're saying makes sense. And when you know that, you can then guide them to a better perspective if you know one, or open yourself up to be convinced that theirs is the better way of looking at it, because now you see it makes more sense than you. There is no absolute truth. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. It's only when you look at all sides of it that you can approach the truth, because you'll never know what it is unless you've become that thing, and if you become it, you can't see what it is from the outside. Just like a main character, he will never see the objective view of the story. And if you see the objective view, you'll never know what it's like to be the main character. And the people in the world, if you look at them, you're always going to see them from the outside. You'll never know what it's like to be them. And you will see them objectively, but you will see you subjectively from the inside. And they can never see that. I'll give you one last story, and then I'll leave it since I have no more visuals, and this is getting, on that particular level, probably pretty boring. Here's the last story. My mom once came upon a scene of an auto accident and stopped her car, and a policeman was going around interviewing people, and he came to her and he said, "Did you see the driver of that car?" Because there was nobody in it right now. And she said, "I don't know." He says, "What do you mean you don't know?" She said, "Well, he wasn't in the car when I got here, but he might have been in the crowd, and I might have seen him there and not known that he was the driver." And the cop said, "You should have been a lawyer." Well, now you know where I get that part of it from. I get it from my mom, who always said there's more than one way to see things, and tried to train me in how to do that. And I think without her influence, maybe there would have been no Dramatica. Is that a good or bad thing? Well, I guess there's a lot of points of view about that too, aren't there? Anyway, that's today's exercise in some sort of performance art. I don't have a name for it, and I will leave you to your own conjectures. And in the future, I'll be posting more of these images so that I'll tell you what I see in them, but also you should look at them first to see what you see in them, and maybe you'll see things I don't. That's not only possible, but desirable. There you go. Until I see you next time, may the muse be with you.